So I lived in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn for quite a while. I actually lived in 2 different places in Bed-Stuy, 3 different places in Bed-Stuy. But the place I lived the longest was the place that I loved the most. It was on Kent Avenue between DeKalb and Willoughby. And every morning I used to run down Willoughby towards Broadway, all the way towards Bushwick direction. Like in one direction you would go towards downtown Brooklyn, in the other direction you would head towards Bushwick, and then eventually get to Queens. And so I used to run towards the direction away from downtown Brooklyn because I'm not running towards any highways, and it just was an easier route. You know, it was less traffic, it was a little bit more peaceful, if you could call anything peaceful in Bed-Stuy, because there was just a lot going on, like trucks all the time and cars and, you know, just a lot of people. But Willoughby Avenue was kind of quiet sometimes, especially early in the morning, so I would always run down that way. So one morning, and I want to share with you, forget about one morning for a second, I want to share with you actually 3 different stories of running each morning at Bed-Stuy that are all kind of connected, because I think of them all as kind of the same story. So I used to run every morning from Kent all the way to Broadway and then back. It was probably only about 3 to 4 miles back and forth, something like that. It was not all that long, but you know, when I just wanted to get a quick run in the morning, that was my route. Other days I would run down Kent and I go all the way into Williamsburg, and then all the way to Greenpoint, all the way to Long Island City, and sometimes I go to McCarran Park and run on the track and then run back, and that way I could put in like 5-6 miles. But generally I would run 3.5 to 4 miles to Broadway and back. So first thing that happens is, you know, like I said, I love that neighborhood. It was a very vibrant neighborhood. It was the most diverse area that I've ever lived in my whole life, which is very important to me and something that I really, really love about that neighborhood. But, you know, every once in a while crazy things would happen, and one night somebody had gotten shot in a bodega pretty close to where I'd run every morning, by the Marcy houses. It was right near the Marcy houses, the Sumner houses, the Tompkins houses. Like, there were a lot of projects right there, and there was a bodega and a really good pizza place right there too, which is a whole other story. I digress. But anyway, somebody had gotten shot at this bodega, and every morning I used to run by this little church. I can't remember the cross street, you know, it was somewhere past Bedford. So anyway, I'd run past this church and I saw this little, like, I don't know if he was a preacher or a minister, but, you know, a religious man. And he would watch me run every morning, and he'd wave to me and had a little smile for me every morning. And he was just a really nice guy, and he would watch me every day, every day, every day. And so on this morning I ran by and I saw him, and he ran out on the street. And he said, "You run past here every day. Every single morning I see you, like a clock. Every single day. I appreciate you running through my neighborhood every day. I think the fact that the whole world lives here now is a good thing, and I appreciate it. But last night something horrible happened in this neighborhood, and please let me pray for you." So I was like, okay, so please just get on one knee. And so I got on one knee. This is literally in the middle of the street. Got on one knee. He said some kind of a prayer in some language that I didn't know. He put his hands on my head, he kissed my forehead, and he said, "May God protect you every day of your life. I hope to see you every day continuing to come through here." And I kept running. Now, another thing that used to happen is I used to run past, a little bit further up, I would, you know, there was like all these row houses, you know, kind of like brownstones. You know, Brooklyn is called Brownstone Brooklyn, you know, and it was just the most beautiful architecture that you could possibly imagine, you know, like Brooklyn brownstones. Just picture it in your head. Every Spike Lee movie, She's Gotta Have It, like, just picture it in your head. Use your imagination. So beautiful. So anyway, a little bit further up, I'd run past this woman, a young woman with a young boy, and I'm assuming, you know, I always assumed it was her son. And they would be sitting out on porch in front of their house. It was a wooden house amidst all these brownstones, but it was a beautiful clapboard, old house, you know, very old too, but it was made of wood. So anyway, I ran by, and one day this little boy who used to be out there every day with his mom came running out on the street, and he said, "Running man, running man, running man." And I stopped, and he goes, "My mother wanted me to ask you, what are you running from?" And I was like, I'm not running from anything. And she's up on that porch, and she just smiles and waves. And that just had me thinking. I don't know what she meant about that. We never talked about it, but that was kind of strange. But cool, and I'd continue to see them all the time. Now, perhaps the most amazing part of my run was I used to run into this woman named Claudia. She was an elderly woman. She lived on, I can't remember the name of the street now, Vernon Avenue, between Troop and Marcus Garvey. And she used to tend to a community garden. Now, at first I thought it was her garden, but it was a community garden. It was at the end of the block. There was kind of an empty lot, and she turned it into a garden. And a lot of people used to work there, but she tended to it every day. It was really her garden. And I used to see her all the time, and we used to talk, and she was a very, very nice woman. You know, when I first met her, she was kind of cold and kind of standoffish, but as we got to know each other, I would say we became pretty good friends, and we spoke about a lot of really meaningful things and stuff like that. And one of the things I used to talk to her about is I used to love to go to this place called Choice, which was a fresh food place closer to me over on Lafayette, in Clinton Hill, by Grand Avenue. And Choice had the best muffins in the history of the world. And you know, anybody who knows me knows I'm always on the search for the perfect muffin. It's got to be healthy, it's got to be real food, it can't be crap. And it's actually, believe it or not, really hard to find a good, natural, kind of homemade, nutritious muffin. But Choice had the best, like incredible muffins. And Claudia loved the banana chocolate chip. So every chance that I got, I would bring her one of these muffins, and we'd sit there and we'd share a muffin. I would usually get the chocolate chip, or maybe a cranberry or something like that. And so anyway, one morning we were talking, and a bunch of kids walked by, and I would say they were probably Pratt students, because Pratt College was pretty close by, but a lot of students started to move into that neighborhood. And she just kind of shook her head, and I was like, what's the matter? She goes, I hate that those children live here. Like, I hate to say it, but I do not like that they live in this neighborhood. And I was like, why? And she goes, I'd rather not say. And I was like, why? You could talk to me about it. Like, what about me? I live in this neighborhood. And she goes, after a long pause, you know, Rock, I love you, but I hate that you live in this neighborhood. And then we just sat there and finished our muffins. We just kind of looked out on the street. Another bunch of white students walked by. Another bunch of white students walked by. And I'm sitting here in this black neighborhood, this culturally beautiful black neighborhood, this neighborhood that had been established and built and beautified and just created by African Americans. And I understood how she felt, and I felt very complicated about that. But we continued our friendship, and a couple of years ago I heard that she had died. I went back and I saw a young man working in that garden. I asked him about her, and he said she passed away. But she was like well into her 80s, and so obviously I never got to speak to her again. But I think about her a lot, and I wrote a play called Brooklyn Quartet, which speaks a lot about gentrification. And I really thought about so many conversations that I had with Claudia after that day that really impacted my writing and the way that I looked at my play. And so I don't live in Bed-Stuy anymore, and I miss Bed-Stuy, and I loved it so much, and I'm always wishing for beautiful things for that neighborhood. It's a very complicated neighborhood. It's complex, just like a lot of life in a lot of this country. And I won't get into this country right now. So that's my story for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're well, and I hope everybody who you love is well. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, and I will see you next week. There's only 4 more weeks of stories in 4K. So I hope you'll continue to watch for the next few weeks, because after that, full speed ahead diving into my new film. Peace.